Your first thought upon seeing this image is likely, what is going on? Why is a Roman statue standing in the middle of antique machinery? Well, you're looking at one of the exhibit halls in Rome's Centrale Montemartini Museum, and the confusion you're feeling is exactly the point. Centrale Montemartini, one of Rome's many Capitoline museums, is an innovative and unique space where viewers can truly experience the city's long and layered history.
On September 20th, 1909, a bureaucracy in charge of Rome's public utilities, the Azienda Elettrica Municipale, was founded through a referendum, creating the Centrale Montemartini power plant. The site is named after the plant's first councillor, Giovanni Montemartini, who unfortunately died 1 year after the opening of the power plant. The energy station itself did not escape the clutches of time either. Less than 60 years later, it was rendered obsolete in 1963. Less than 60 years later, it was rendered obsolete in 1963 due to the rapid transformation of the power industry.
The turnaround came in the late 1980s as ACEA decided to renovate and repurpose this historic plant. Its engine room and new boiler room were transformed into an art and multimedia center, housing temporary exhibitions, while the remaining rooms became offices, laboratories, and warehouses. At that time, the Capitoline museums were undergoing a series of renovations, and it was also the most productive time in Roman archaeological history. The Capitoline museums found themselves in urgent need of a space to accommodate the growing collection. As a result, the Centrale Montemartini power plant was then adapted into a museum, and hundreds of sculptures were transferred there. Ultimately, they opened temporary exhibitions like Le Macchine e gli Dei at the end of October 1997. The contrast between ancient sculptures and machinery was undeniably intriguing and innovative for viewers at the time. With the positive feedback from both viewers and experts, this temporary experiment was turned into a permanent collection of the Capitoline Museum's most recently acquired sculptures.
Centrale Montemartini connects the viewer with the ancient Rome on display and Roman modernity. Most museums act as a blank canvas or transport visitors to the past, but Centrale Montemartini highlights the artifacts through contrast and contradiction. Most of the power plant hardware left behind is characterized by dark colossal steel pipes, boilers, and engines, while most of the objects on display are patinated bronze or white marble sculptures. While most of the objects on display are patinated bronze or white marble sculptures that capture the ancient organic world. The industrial architecture, which houses some of the greatest works of ancient Rome, is an embodiment of the eternal city, highlighting the greatest strengths of its history. Now, what does this all look like? The museum spans 2 floors, consisting of a handful of rooms. Each room is home to dozens of artifacts, yet the museum remains manageable in scope and layout, following a clear visitor path through each gallery. The name of each following room refers to the original purpose of the room in the power plant. Beginning on the ground floor, here's a temporary exhibition area and atrium located immediately behind the ticket office. Next, visitors enter the column hall, encompassing most of the ground floor. It is a long, narrow, winding space with yellow walls that contains works of the Roman Republic, including busts and statues of senators, emperors, and other important politicians and their families.
This hall leads to Boiler Room 2, also known as the Train Room, which is dedicated to the personal train commissioned by Pope Pius IX. The transition between the column hall and the train room is abrupt, inserting a temporal jump into the future in an otherwise consecutively organized body of objects. However, the proximity of the Pope's train and imperial iconography establishes the Roman papacy's connection to the Roman Empire and the tendency of popes to fashion themselves after emperors. The train itself is a testament to Pope Pius IX's keen industrial awareness. He was pope from 1846 to 1878, the longest papal term in history, and he understood the growing importance of rail travel during this time. He oversaw the construction of railways linking Rome to other important papal cities. This lavish train was commissioned in 1858 by the Pio Centrale and Pio Latina companies and made by French companies as a gift. The Pope made his inaugural trip in it in 1859. Following the capture of Rome in 1870, when the Kingdom of Italy took control of the city away from the Papal States, the train was left in Civitavecchia and later taken to Termini Station, where many of its original adornments were taken away. It was later acknowledged as an important historical document in 1911, restored to its former glory, and placed on display in Castel Sant'Angelo. It was later transferred to the Museo di Roma in 1930, where it remained until ultimately being moved here.
After exploring representations of Roman leadership of both ancient and more contemporary systems, visitors ascend the stairs to the engine room to find themselves between two massive black engines lined by marble statues. The statues are located all around the engines, encouraging the visitor to explore the space from all angles, even offering stairs extending several meters above the floor, sculptures, and engines for a panoramic view. Most of the pieces in this room are monuments to gods, goddesses, emperors, and other sentimentally significant figures. The last room of Centrale Montemartini is Boiler Room 1. This room is characterized by its green walls and intricate layout, constructed by a number of unoriginal dividers. This room is also referred to as the garden, since it is home to garden sculptures and residential floor mosaics, which depict hunting scenes and natural imagery. After navigating all the niches of the garden, visitors come face to face with one of the largest industrial structures of the museum, the boiler. Unlike the engine room, the pieces in the boiler room do not orbit the machine. Rather, many of the sculptures face to or away from it, creating a dialogue between the works of antiquity and modernity. Ultimately, visitors are encouraged to explore the relationship between the past, present, and future, and wonder how the pieces found in Centrale Montemartini feel about leaving their original homes to be put on display for us today in an utterly foreign space to them.
The first work we are going to introduce in Boiler Room 1 is the statue of a muse, or Polymnia. It is a Roman marble copy of a Greek Hellenistic sculpture. It was discovered in 1928 in Via Terni, inside an ancient underground conduit near the Horti Variani. Now, you can find her looking into the distance alone next to the giant mosaic floor panel. She was carved from creamy marble, which stands 159 centimeters tall. The patina and overall shape of her remain intact, but her nose has since been lost. She represents Polymnia, the muse of holy poetry and hymns. Here, she is merely a delicate girl with her head resting on her right hand as she leans against a stone pillar. The hard marble is brought to life by the semi-transparent veil that obscures her right arm. The industrial context of the museum imparts alternative interpretations to the sculpture. Nostalgia for the idyllic life in antiquity, alienation of humans in industrialized society, and the inevitable vulgarization of fine art due to mass production.
Another work of note in this room is the statue of a seated girl. This is another Roman marble copy of a Greek sculpture. Created during the 2nd century and owned by Emperor Licinius Gallienus, she was uncovered on the Esquiline Hill near the Temple of Minerva Medica. Now located off to the left wall, surrounded by other figurative sculptures, she gazes upon the impressive hunting scene floor mosaic before her and the dominating and mechanical boiler located off to her left. The statue of a seated girl is especially intriguing because of her pose and demeanor. Seated on a stool, she faces away from you, unaware of anyone else's presence, seemingly preoccupied in her own world. Her soft, childlike features and the delicate treatment of her loose curls and draped clothing appeal to our more sensitive parts. While the moment is so tender, one can't help but wonder what a darling girl could be so worried about. She is curled up upon herself, leaning forwards with crossed legs and an arm pulling a heavier coat across her body over her light dress, mimicking a fetal pose, almost as if she's comforting herself. The complexity of her pose also invites you to consider her from all angles while you try to figure out what could possibly be on her mind. As a result, you and the girl become one and the same, sharing a thoughtful moment of self-reflection and empathy.
Visiting Centrale Montemartini is an incredibly unique and memorable experience. Museums that originally served a different function are relatively uncommon, so the way that viewers will engage with the art is inherently different, fostering unique personal understanding. Two similar museums that rework industrial buildings are the Hamburger Bahnhof in Berlin and the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, both of which used to be train stations. While all three museums display artwork in an industrial setting, Centrale Montemartini's focus on permanent exhibitions and on ancient art sets it apart. Because most of the art is fragmented or damaged and comes from local excavations, it does not have an existing historical setting to return to. Similarly, because the art is on permanent display, this museum effectively becomes the only context it exists in. This allows for a uniquely strong connection to be formed between the space and the objects. Additionally, both the ancient art and the industrial era architecture represent distinct historical eras to modern viewers, which encourages museum visitors to think about history in a new way. Finally, the socio-economic and political significance of Centrale Montemartini cannot be overlooked. The conversion of the power plant into a cultural space, and then more specifically into an art museum, was done with the explicit goal of celebrating Rome's industrial history and revitalizing one of the city's poorer, more rundown areas. A visit to Centrale Montemartini is not only a chance for viewers to engage with the art on a personal level, but also to engage with the long and layered history of Rome.